There's one word that can send a shiver down the spine of just about any worker: layoffs. Today, we're going to dig into why they happen, what the real cost is, and whether there's a better way to handle the whole thing. Okay, so let's get one thing straight right from the get-go. Layoffs, they're not just some random, unfortunate event you read about in the headlines. Nope, they are, for better or worse, a fundamental feature of our modern economy. And when you look at the scale of it, well, it's pretty mind-boggling. Just look at this number, 350,000. And that's just in the oil and gas industry, in a single 2-year span. Numbers like this really drive home the point that we're not talking about a rare event here. This is a massive, recurring force that shapes the world of work. So what do companies even mean when they use a word like downsizing? It sounds a bit clinical, right? And that's because it is. From their perspective, it's not just about firing people. It's a strategic, pre-planned move to cut a large chunk of the workforce, all in the name of making the company more effective and improving the bottom line. And believe me, this is nothing new. This has been a go-to play in the corporate playbook for decades now. You can see it right here. IBM back in '93, Citigroup during the financial crisis. These are huge, iconic companies making massive cuts. It really spans across all sorts of industries. Which, brings us to the big question. Why? Why do companies, even ones that are making a ton of money, decide to do this? What's the business case that makes them pull the trigger on something so disruptive? Well, when you break it down, it's really all about a strategic trade-off. On one side, you've got the pros, at least from the company's point of view: cutting costs, boosting profits, making stockholders happy. But on the other side, the cons are huge. You risk absolutely tanking morale, losing incredibly skilled people, and even hurting your relationship with customers. It's a massive gamble, for sure. And the reasons they give are often pretty complex. It's really just one thing. It could be about bringing in new tech and needing fewer people. It could be about moving jobs overseas to save money. Or sometimes it's a really drastic move to try and change the entire culture of the company. This chart is a perfect real-world example. Back in 2016, oil prices plummeted. And what happened? A massive wave of layoffs swept through the industry. Companies like Schlumberger had to cut tens of thousands of jobs, all to react to the market and try to stay afloat. It's a brutal chain reaction. But, and this is the really important part, behind all those business decisions and balance sheets, there's a huge human cost. We can't forget that. We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet, we're talking about people's lives, their families, their futures. And what's really fascinating and kind of sad is that the fallout isn't just limited to the people who lose their jobs. It goes way deeper. It has a massive impact on the folks who are left behind, the so-called survivors. And as this quote puts it, they often become narrow-minded, self-absorbed, and risk-averse. That's pretty telling, isn't it? So really, a layoff creates two groups of victims. You have the people who are let go, who are obviously hit with financial hardship and all the stress that comes with it. But then you have the survivors, who are dealing with this weird mix of guilt, fear that they're next, and a suddenly much bigger workload. And on top of all that, their trust in the company is just gone. The impact just ripples out into every single corner of a person's life. It's so much more than losing a paycheck. We're talking emotional hits like anxiety and depression, social strain on relationships, and of course, financial trouble. But it can even get physical. Stress-related illnesses like heart problems can pop up. It's serious stuff. Okay, so with stakes this high for both the people and the company itself, how a business handles the layoff process becomes absolutely critical. I mean, it can be the difference between a tough but necessary change and a complete and utter disaster that poisons the well for years. So that really begs the question, right? If a company decides a layoff is the only option, how can they do it better? How can they handle it legally, ethically, and maybe most importantly, with a little more humanity? This is where a good HR department is supposed to step up and lead. Their job should start by asking, hey, do we really need to do this? Are there any other options? Things like furloughs or hiring freezes. And if the answer is still yes, then their job is to make the process as fair and transparent as possible. And crucially, to make sure there's support in place, not just for the people leaving, but for the survivors too. Yeah, the best way to think about it is that it shouldn't be a blunt axe, just chopping away randomly. It should be more like a surgical scalpel. The goal isn't just about reducing the number of employees, it's about carefully reshaping the workforce, ideally based on performance, and doing everything possible to limit the damage to morale and the overall company culture. All right, so after the decision has been made and the dust starts to settle, what's next? How do people and the company that's left start to pick up the pieces and move forward? If you're someone who's been laid off, the path forward is kind of twofold. First, there's the emotional side. You've got to let yourself process what happened, manage those feelings, and really lean on your friends and family. But then there's the practical side. Dust off that resume, maybe learn a new skill, and start networking like crazy to find what's next.
I love this quote. People don't mind change, but they mind being changed. It just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? So much of the bitterness around layoffs comes from that feeling of having no control, of having this huge change just done to you. It's a huge reminder that if you're going to make big changes, you have to communicate and involve people.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. As things like automation and AI keep changing the game, are layoffs always going to be the default answer? Or can we maybe lay off the idea of layoffs themselves and find better, more human ways to adapt to the future of work?